Ambassador Kim Tae-ho stood in the center of the huge chamber. The walls rose high above him, made of some strange metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Around him sat hundreds of alien beings. Some looked like giant lizards. Others were made of crystal that sparkled in the light. Some had too many arms. Some had no arms at all. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in the galaxy. They made decisions for thousands of worlds and billions of creatures. And right now they were all looking at him with what he could only call amusement. Kim had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years. He had learned to read alien faces, even the strange ones. He could see mockery in their eyes. He could hear it in the small sounds they made to each other. They thought this was funny. Behind him stood Captain Park So-jin. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Defense Force. Her hand rested on her weapon, not as a threat but as a reminder. She had been with Kim for every meeting. She had seen how these aliens treated humans. "Honorable Council members," Kim began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I stand before you today not to beg, not to ask for mercy. I am here to give you information." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. One of the lizard-like aliens stood up. This was Councillor Vexithari of the Zephyrian Empire. He was tall, with scales that changed color when he was angry or amused. Right now they were bright green. Amusement, information. Vexithari's voice was like gravel in a metal box. What information could a primitive species possibly offer us? Kim did not react to the insult. He had expected it. Information about what will happen if you attack my world. Another wave of laughter. Louder this time. Some aliens were actually pointing at him now. Kim waited for it to die down. An ancient being made of living crystal spoke next. This was Elder Morden, the oldest member of the council. He had been alive for thousands of years. His voice sounded like wind through caves. "Young human," Morden said. "In my long life I have seen many species try to threaten this council. All of them learned the same lesson. The galaxy is vast. The council is strong. Individual worlds, no matter how proud, must bend to the greater good." "I am not threatening you," Kim replied calmly. "I am warning you." The distinction seemed lost on most of the council. But Kim pressed on. "My species has a history you should understand. For thousands of years we fought each other on our world. We created weapons that could destroy cities. We built machines that could poison the air and water. We turned our entire planet into a battlefield more than once." "Exactly." Vexithari's scales flashed brighter green. "You are a violent, primitive species. This is why you must be brought under control." "You misunderstand," Kim said. "We did not fight because we were primitive. We fought because we do not surrender, ever." Captain Park shifted slightly behind him. Kim knew she was remembering their briefings before this mission. Earth's leaders had been very clear. This was probably the last chance for peace. Kim continued. "When we fought our greatest war, we did not stop when our cities burned. We did not stop when millions died. We did not stop when the very air became poisonous to breathe. We fought until one side could no longer fight. Then we learned from that war and prepared for the next one." General Kethvar, the military commander of the Hegemony Alliance, leaned forward. He looked like a cross between a shark and a spider, with too many teeth and too many eyes. "Are you comparing your small world conflicts to a war with the galaxy's greatest powers? We have ships that could crack your planet in half. We have weapons you cannot imagine." "I'm sure you do," Kim agreed. "And I'm sure you will use them." "That is not the point." "Then what is the point?" Elder Morden asked, his crystal body chiming softly with curiosity. Kim took a deep breath. This was the moment everything depended on. "The point is that when you attack Earth, you think you are conquering a planet. You think you are bringing peace to a small, troublesome world. You are wrong. You will be starting a war that will not end until every last one of you is dead, or every last one of us is." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the laughter started again. Louder than before. Vexithari was almost glowing with amusement. "Your entire species has barely 40 ships. We have thousands. You have no allies, no advanced technology, no hope of victory. You are insects trying to threaten eagles." "We are not trying to threaten anyone," Kim repeated. "We are giving you facts. When you attack our world, we will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will not stop fighting until you are all dead or we are." "Impossible," scoffed another council member, a floating creature covered in tentacles. "No species fights to extinction. When defeat becomes certain, they surrender. They negotiate. They find ways to survive." Park spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. "You don't understand humans very well, do you?" The aliens turned to look at her. Kim nodded for her to continue. "My grandfather fought in our last World War," Park said. "His city was surrounded. No food, no water, no hope of rescue. The enemy offered to let the civilians leave if the soldiers surrendered. You know what my grandfather did? He told the civilians to fight too. Men, women, children. They all fought. They all died. But they took the enemy army with them." She paused, letting that sink in. "That's what humans do when we're cornered. We don't just die. We make sure you die with us." Elder Morden's crystal body had stopped chiming. "Surely you exaggerate. No species is so unreasonable." Kim shook his head. "We have a saying on Earth. If you kill one of us, we will hunt you forever. It's not poetry. It's a promise." General Kethvar's many eyes focused on Kim. "Even if what you say is true, what can your species do against us? We outnumber you 1,000 to 1. "Numbers don't matter," Kim said. "You think like generals. You think about fleets and planets and territory. We think like hunters. We will find your world. We will find your ships. We will find your families. And we will kill them all." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several aliens stood up, shouting insults and threats. But Kim wasn't finished. "You want to know what humans are capable of?" He called out over the noise. "We once built a weapon that could destroy our own planet. Not because we needed it. Because we were angry. We created poisons that could kill every living thing in our oceans. We turned our moon into a military base. We did all of this while fighting each other. Imagine what we will do when we all agree on a single target." The shouting died down. The aliens were listening again, but their expressions had changed. Some looked angry. Some looked thoughtful. A few looked worried. Vexithari's scales had turned a darker shade. "You speak of madness, not war." "From your perspective, perhaps," Kim agreed. "But from our perspective, it's simple logic. You want to destroy our world. We want to survive. The easiest way for us to survive is to make sure there's no one left who wants to destroy us." "The vote has already been decided," Elder Mordan said firmly. "Operation Cleansing Dawn will proceed in 72 hours. Your world will be pacified. Your species will be relocated to appropriate reserves." "This conversation changes nothing," Kim nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. "Then I have done my duty. I have given you the information you need to make an informed decision." He turned to leave, Park falling into step beside him. "Ambassador," Vexithari called out. "A final question. If your species is so dangerous, why warn us at all? Why not simply let us attack and discover the truth ourselves?" Kim stopped and looked back. "Because despite everything, we hoped you might be reasonable. We hoped you might choose to leave us alone. We hoped we wouldn't have to prove what we're capable of." He pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. A single word was transmitted across space to Earth. "Confirmed." As they walked toward their ship, Park asked quietly, "Do you think they believed us?" Kim shook his head. "No, they think we're bluffing. They think we're trying to scare them with big words, and are we?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Captain, in your professional opinion, what will happen when they attack Earth?" Park's expression was grim. "We'll lose, sir. We'll lose badly. They have more ships, better weapons, superior technology. And then?" Park's smile was cold and sharp. "Then they'll learn that losing a battle and losing a war are two very different things." As their shuttle lifted off from the council station, neither of them looked back. There was nothing more to say. In 3 days, the Hegemony Alliance would attack Earth. The galaxy would discover what humans were really capable of. And everything would change forever. The Hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 massive warships, each one larger than Earth's biggest city. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the human sun. General Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue and white planet grow larger on the screen. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, preparing for what they all expected to be a quick victory. "Enemy fleet detected," reported his tactical officer. 47 ships. "They're moving to intercept us." Kethvar's multiple eyes focused on the display. The human ships looked crude compared to his fleet. Ugly metal boxes with weapons stuck on the outside. No elegant curves, no beautiful design, just function over form. "They're actually going to fight us," he said, almost impressed. "I expected them to surrender once they saw our numbers." On the human side, Admiral Ryu Hae-young commanded from the orbital fortress called New Seoul. She was a small woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had been preparing for this day for 20 years. "All ships report ready," said her communications officer. Ryu looked at the tactical display. 300 enemy ships against 47 human vessels. The odds were impossible. But the plan had never been to win the space battle. The plan was something else entirely. "Signal all stations," she said calmly. "Activate Protocol 7. Across Earth's solar system, things began to change. Mining stations that had been pulling rocks from asteroids suddenly revealed hidden weapons. Cargo ships carrying supplies to the outer planets opened their holds to show military equipment instead of food. Space elevators that lifted materials from Earth's surface began launching missiles instead. The first human ship to die was the destroyer Kim Il-sung. It was hit by weapons that turned its hull into glowing metal. But as it died, Captain Jang Hyun-woo aimed his ship at the nearest enemy vessel. The human ship struck the alien dreadnought right in the engine section. Both ships exploded together. "First kill confirmed," reported the tactical officer on Kethvar's bridge. "But we lost the heavy cruiser dominance in a ramming attack," Kethvar frowned. Ramming was not a normal battle tactic. It was wasteful. It threw away your own ship to damage the enemy. Civilized species didn't fight like that. The battle continued. Human ships were destroyed one after another, but each death cost the hegemony fleet dearly. The humans didn't try to retreat when they were damaged. They didn't try to surrender when they were outnumbered. They just kept fighting until they exploded. Commander Choi Yu-jin was on Earth's surface, deep underground in a bunker beneath the city of Busan. Around her, thousands of civilians were taking their places in what looked like subway stations. But these weren't for transportation. They were fortress cities built over decades in secret. "Surface bombardment beginning," reported her aide. Through the thick concrete walls, they could feel the vibrations as alien weapons struck the Earth. Cities that had stood for hundreds of years were being turned to ash in minutes. But the people didn't panic. They had been preparing for this. "Activate the surface defenses," Choi ordered. All across Earth, peaceful-looking buildings began to change. What had appeared to be apartment complexes opened to reveal missile launchers. Parks and gardens slid aside to show gun emplacements. Even children's schools had been built with hidden weapon systems. Dr. Lee Min-ho was in a factory complex outside Seoul. When the bombing started, he gave the order that changed everything. Begin global manufacturing protocol. Every factory, every printer, every automated system. Switch to military production now. Within hours, factories that had been making toys began producing grenades. Medical facilities started creating combat drugs. Even the machines that made clothes began working on armor instead. Earth's entire industrial base transformed from peaceful production to weapons manufacturing. In space, the human fleet was almost gone. Only 12 ships were left, and they were all damaged. But Admiral Ryu wasn't worried. The space battle had never been the real fight. "All remaining ships scatter formation," she ordered. "Begin Ghost Protocol." The surviving human vessels broke apart and fled in different directions. To the aliens, it looked like a complete retreat. But they were wrong. The ships weren't running away. They were positioning themselves for the next phase. General Kethvar finally achieved orbital control after 6 hours of fighting. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by human ships that fought like mad animals. But he had won the space battle. "Begin orbital bombardment," he commanded. "Target all major cities and military installations." The bombardment was terrible. Beams of energy struck down from space, turning Earth's great cities into burning craters. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai. All of them died under alien fire. From space, it looked like the planet was covered in wounds, but something was wrong. Kethvar's sensors showed that the bombardment was working, but reports from his ships told a different story. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the mining station Prosperity has gone silent. Last transmission indicated they were under attack." "Under attack by what?" Kethvar demanded. "We destroyed the human fleet." Before the officer could answer, another report came in. Then another. Supply ships were disappearing. Patrol vessels were being destroyed. The scattered human ships were still out there, hitting the hegemony fleet from behind asteroids and moons. Captain Nam Dong-hyun commanded one of these ghost ships. His vessel, the Incheon, had been badly damaged in the main battle. Half his crew was dead. His weapons were barely working. But he wasn't finished fighting. He had hidden his ship in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon. When a hegemony supply convoy passed nearby, he struck without warning. His ship was almost destroyed in the attack. But he took 3 alien vessels with him. Engineer Song A-young was working in a hidden base on Mars. The planet looked dead from space, but underground, massive factories were building ships, not beautiful ships like the aliens made. Ugly, functional weapons designed for one purpose: killing the enemy. First batch of Vengeance-class ships ready for launch, she reported to Earth Command. They're not pretty, but they'll do the job. The Vengeance ships were essentially flying bombs with engines. They had just enough life support to keep a small crew alive long enough to reach a target. They carried no extra equipment, no comfortable quarters, no fancy systems. Just weapons and rage. On Earth's surface, the alien bombardment continued for 3 days. When it finally stopped, General Kethvar was confident that the planet was dead. His sensors showed no major cities, no military bases, no signs of organized resistance. "Begin landing operations," he ordered. "Send down the occupation forces." The first hegemony troops to land on Earth found exactly what they expected: burned cities, dead lands, no sign of organized military resistance. They set up bases in the ruins and began sending victory reports back to the fleet. But pilot Jang Hyun-woo, hiding in a bunker beneath the rubble of Seoul, was watching them through hidden cameras. The aliens thought they had won. They had no idea what was really happening. 3 months after the invasion, the first refugee ships launched from Earth. To the hegemony fleet, they looked like exactly what they claimed to be: desperate survivors fleeing their destroyed world. The aliens let them pass without interference. General Kethvar watched the small ships disappear into space and felt something that might have been pity. "At least some of them survived," he told his aide. "Perhaps they can find a new world somewhere far from here." His aide, a young officer named Zetron, nodded agreement. "The war is over, sir. Earth is pacified." But scientist Han Bo-ra, aboard one of those refugee ships, was working on something the aliens couldn't imagine. She was developing weapons designed specifically to kill alien life forms. Viruses that would attack their nervous systems. Chemicals that would poison their blood. Biological weapons that would make their deaths slow and terrible. Back on Earth, Commander Choi emerged from the underground cities with her civilians. They weren't refugees or survivors. They were an army that had been waiting for the bombing to stop so they could begin the real war. The hidden factories on Mars launched their first ships toward the outer planets. The scattered human fleet regrouped in the asteroid belt, and across the galaxy the refugee ships began establishing secret bases on remote worlds. General Kethvar received his first hint that something was wrong when a supply convoy disappeared near Saturn. Then a patrol ship vanished in the asteroid belt. Then his base on Earth's moon went silent. "Sir," Zetron reported nervously, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth's surface." On the main screen, a human face appeared. It was Commander Choi speaking from the ruins of Seoul. "General Kethvar," she said calmly, "I want you to know that Earth has not surrendered. We have not been defeated. We have not given up. You won a single battle. The war is just beginning." The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the blank screen, feeling something cold growing in his stomach. "Sir?" Zetron asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Kethvar looked at the tactical display showing Earth. The planet was supposed to be dead. The humans were supposed to be beaten, but clearly they had missed something important. "Double the security patrols," he ordered, "and send a message to the Council.
Tell them we may have complications."
6 months had passed since Earth's defeat, and the galaxy was learning what human warfare really meant. What had started as a simple conquest was becoming something much darker and more frightening. Colonel Baek Ji-hoon stood in the command center of the Mars Industrial Complex. The room was carved deep into the red planet's rock, hidden from the sensors of the alien ships that occasionally passed overhead. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of human forces throughout the solar system. "Report," he said to his aide, Lieutenant Park Min-seo. "Production is ahead of schedule, sir. We now have 47 ships ready for operation, with 12 more completing construction this week. All are Vengeance-class vessels," Beck nodded. The aliens had assumed that bombing Earth would end human resistance. They had never imagined that Mars had been turned into a fortress over the past century. The entire planet was hollow underneath. filled with factories and military bases that the hegemony had never detected. Engineer Song Ah-young approached his desk, carrying a datapad. She looked tired but satisfied. "Sir, the new ships are ready for their first mission. They're not much to look at, but they'll do what we need them to do." Beck looked at the images on her pad. The Vengeance ships were ugly things, built from salvaged alien technology and human determination. They had no elegant curves, no beautiful design. They looked like flying coffins covered in weapons, which in many ways they were. "How long can the crews survive in them?" he asked. "Long enough to reach their targets," Song replied grimly. "That's all that matters." Across the galaxy, Supply Convoy 7 was making its routine journey between Zephyrian worlds. The convoy consisted of 12 cargo ships carrying food, medicine, and other supplies to distant colonies. They were protected by 4 hegemony warships. Commander Vexkala, nephew of the Great Counselor Vexathari, was in charge of the escort. He was young and confident, believing that the human threat had been greatly exaggerated. After all, Earth was a burned world. Its people were scattered refugees. How much trouble could they possibly cause? "Contact on sensors," his tactical officer reported. "Small ship approaching from the asteroid belt." Vexkala looked at the display. A single human vessel, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere. It looked like a refugee ship trying to escape the solar system. "Hail them," he ordered. "Offer assistance." The human ship responded immediately. The face that appeared on screen was that of pilot Nam Dong-hyun, though Vexkala didn't know his name. Nam looked desperate and frightened. "Please," Nam said. "Our ship is dying. We have civilians aboard, children. We just need safe passage." Vexkala felt a moment of sympathy. These were the survivors of a conquered world, trying to find safety somewhere in the vast galaxy. The honorable thing would be to help them. "You may pass," he said, "but maintain distance from our convoy." "Thank you," Nam replied, tears in his eyes. "Thank you so much." The human ship continued on its path, passing close to the convoy but not threatening it. Vexkala watched it go, feeling good about his mercy. 10 minutes later, the refugee ship exploded. But it wasn't an accident. Nam had detonated his vessel's reactor right next to the convoy's main supply ship. The explosion destroyed 4 cargo vessels and damaged 2 others. In seconds, months of supplies were turned to burning metal. As Vexkala stared in shock at the destruction, more human ships appeared from the asteroid belt. Not refugees this time, warships. Ugly, functional Vengeance-class vessels built for one purpose: killing aliens. The battle was brief and vicious. The hegemony escort ships were designed for fighting other civilized species, with rules and honor and mercy. The human ships fought like wild animals. When their weapons were destroyed, they rammed. When their hulls were breached, they kept fighting. When they were clearly beaten, they exploded themselves to take aliens with them. By the end, the entire convoy was destroyed. 3 hegemony warships were gone. One escaped barely to carry news of the attack back to headquarters. This was happening all over the galaxy. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and disappeared back into space. They didn't follow any rules of warfare. They didn't give quarter or ask for surrender. They just killed and vanished. Dr. Scientist Han Bo-ra was working in a hidden laboratory aboard one of the refugee ships. To outside observers, her vessel looked like any other human survivor craft. Inside, it was something much more dangerous. She had been studying alien biology for months, working with samples collected from the battlefields around Earth. What she had discovered was terrifying in its implications. "The virus is ready," she reported to Colonel Beck via encrypted transmission. "Specifically designed for Zephyrian physiology. It will cause uncontrolled molting until death from exhaustion." "Biological warfare?" Beck asked. "Are you certain about this path?" Han's face was hard.
"Sir, they glassed our cities."
"They killed billions of our people. They started this war by trying to commit genocide against our entire species. I have no moral concerns about returning the favor." The first deployment happened on a hegemony naval base in the Rigel system. A human operative, surgically altered to look like an alien maintenance worker, released the virus into the air recycling system. Within days, the entire base was full of Zephyrian soldiers molting themselves to death. The psychological impact was enormous. The aliens had never faced biological weapons designed specifically for them. The idea that humans could target their very biology with custom-made diseases created a new kind of Fear Counselor Vexithari himself was in the Galactic Council chambers when news of the biological attack reached him. His scales, usually controlled and dignified, flickered between colors as panic and rage fought for control. "These creatures are not fighting a war," he hissed to the other council members. "They are conducting an extermination campaign. They want us all dead." Elder Mordan's crystal body chimed softly with concern. "Perhaps we underestimated their resolve. Perhaps we should consider negotiations." Negotiations. General Kethvar's multiple eyes focused on the ancient being. "My fleet is being torn apart by ships that appear from nowhere and vanish like ghosts. My supply lines are under constant attack. My soldiers are dying from diseases that shouldn't even exist. What is there to negotiate?" The truth was that human forces were following a strategy that none of the alien species understood. They weren't trying to hold territory or win great battles. They were trying to make the galaxy uninhabitable for their enemies. Operative Quan Yunji had been surgically altered to look like a Zephyrian officer. For 6 months, she had been working inside Hegemony Command, gathering intelligence and sabotaging operations from within. Her information allowed human forces to predict enemy movements and turn defensive battles into slaughters. But her greatest achievement was yet to come. She had gained access to the Zephyrian High Command's communication system. With a few careful adjustments to the encryption codes, she could ensure that human forces would know about every hegemony operation before it began. The operation took place during a routine strategy meeting. As the alien commanders discussed their plans for eliminating human resistance, Quan made her final adjustments to their systems. Every message they sent would now be copied to human intelligence. Her sabotage was discovered moments later. As alarms blared and security forces rushed toward her position, Quan activated the small explosive device she had carried for months. She had always known this was a one-way mission. The explosion didn't just kill her. It destroyed the command ship's main computer core, along with months of strategic planning and intelligence data. More importantly, it killed 7 of the hegemony's best military commanders. General Park Jong-soo was leading the Outer Rim campaign, systematically cutting off alien supply lines and isolating their core worlds. His strategy was simple but effective. Make it impossible for the aliens to maintain their civilization. Target confirmed, his tactical officer reported. Harmonium mining station in the Vega system. Park nodded. The Harmonian species were peaceful plant-like beings who had never directly participated in the attack on Earth. But they had provided the materials that built the hegemony fleet. That made them guilty in human eyes. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The human ship struck without warning. The mining station was defended only by a few patrol boats, never expecting to be attacked. Within hours, the entire facility was destroyed. But Park's forces didn't stop there. They systematically destroyed every piece of mining equipment, every processing facility, every storage depot in the system. When they were finished, the Vega system was economically dead. It would take decades to rebuild what had been destroyed in a single day. This was happening throughout hegemony space. Human forces didn't occupy conquered territories. They stripped them of all useful resources and left them as warnings to others. Entire star systems became dead zones, unable to support civilized life. The psychological warfare was just as important as the physical attacks. Psychologist Yoon Soo-ah had developed the Despair Protocol, techniques designed to break alien morale and will to fight. Human broadcasts were transmitted throughout hegemony space. Not threats or demands, but simple statements of fact. Lists of destroyed facilities, names of dead alien commanders. 2 years into the war, the galaxy was dying. What had begun as Operation Cleansing Dawn, a simple mission to bring peace to one troublesome world, had become a nightmare that consumed everything in its path. Fleet Admiral Oh Sung-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Soul's Vengeance. Around him, the Shadow Fleet moved through space like ghosts. 43 ships of various designs, some captured alien vessels, some purpose-built human warships, some jury-rigged combinations of both. They shared one thing in common. They had all been painted black as space, invisible until the moment they struck. Target confirmed, his tactical officer reported. Zephyrian Supply Depot in the Tau Ceti system. 12 defense platforms, estimated 30 civilian transports. Oh nodded grimly. The Shadow Fleet didn't seek to hold territory or establish bases. Their mission was simpler and more terrible. Make the galaxy uninhabitable for humanity's enemies. Begin the attack, he ordered. The battle was swift and brutal. The Zephyrian defenses had been designed to fight other civilized species, with rules about targeting civilians and preserving cultural sites. The humans had no such restrictions. They targeted everything that could support alien civilization. When the battle ended, the supply depot was nothing but burning wreckage. The defense platforms were destroyed. The civilian transports were gone. But O's fleet wasn't finished. They systematically destroyed every piece of infrastructure in the system. Communication relays, navigation beacons, even weather monitoring stations. When they finally left, the Tau Ceti system was economically dead. Ships could still pass through, but they would find no fuel, no repairs, no supplies, no reason to stop. It would take decades to rebuild what had been destroyed in 6 hours. This was the new reality of the war. The aliens still controlled more territory, more ships, more resources than humanity. But none of that mattered when humans could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and vanish back into the dark spaces between stars. On the planet Harmonious Prime, capital world of the peaceful Harmonian species, First Speaker Veltar was meeting with his council of advisors. The plant-like beings had never been warriors. They were farmers and artists, philosophers and musicians. They had joined the Hegemony Alliance for protection, never imagining they would be drawn into a war like this. The humans have destroyed our mining operations in 12 systems, reported military advisor Krendal. Our industrial capacity is down by 70%. If this continues, we won't be able to maintain our basic infrastructure. Perhaps we should approach them directly, suggested cultural advisor Yenmar. Surely they must understand that we were not the architects of their world's destruction. First Speaker Veltar's leaves rustled with distress. I fear it may be too late for such gestures. The reports from species that have tried to negotiate separately are disturbing. The disturbing reports came from worlds throughout the galaxy. The gentle ones had tried to surrender individually, offering to provide reparations and assistance to human refugees. The human response had been to systematically destroy every major city on their homeworld, leaving behind only a message. Neutrality was your choice when it mattered. The Crystalline Collective had attempted to negotiate by offering technological exchanges and cultural gifts. Human forces had responded by targeting their most sacred sites, ancient crystal formations that contained the memories of their ancestors. Thousands of years of history had been destroyed in a single day. Even species that had never participated in the attack on Earth found themselves under assault. The logic was cold and simple. Any species capable of supporting the hegemony war effort was a legitimate target. Innocent bystanders didn't exist in this conflict. General Park Jong-soo was leading the systematic destruction of the Outer Rim supply network. His forces had perfected the art of economic warfare. They didn't need to conquer worlds. They just needed to make those worlds useless to the enemy. Next target is the agricultural world of New Eden, his aide, Major Kim Siri, reported. Population 2 billion. Primary export foodstuffs for the core worlds. Park studied the intelligence reports. New Eden was a beautiful world, covered in vast farms that fed dozens of other planets. It was defended by only a token force. No one had ever imagined that agricultural worlds would become military targets. Prepare the biological weapons, he ordered. Type 7 fungal spores, target all food crops. The attack on New Eden was invisible and devastating. Human ships dropped biological agents into the planet's atmosphere, engineered fungi that would destroy all plant life. Within weeks, the vast farms that fed billions became dead wasteland. The planet could be terraformed again eventually, but it would take centuries. The psychological impact was enormous. If the humans would destroy entire agricultural worlds just to deny food to their enemies, no civilian target was safe. Fear began to spread throughout hegemony space. Operative Nam Dong-hyun had been dead for months, killed in the attack on the Zephyrian supply convoy. But his sacrifice had inspired a new kind of warfare. Human operatives, altered to look like various alien species, had infiltrated key installations throughout the galaxy. On the military world of Fortress Alpha, a human operative disguised as a maintenance worker had spent 6 months learning the base's routines. When the moment was right, he sabotaged the primary fusion reactor. The explosion didn't just destroy the base. It created a radiation zone that would be uninhabitable for decades. On the trading hub of Commerce Central, another operative had introduced a computer virus into the main trading network. The virus didn't just crash the system, it systematically deleted financial records, transportation schedules, and communication protocols. The economic disruption spread throughout hundreds of star systems. These weren't random acts of terrorism. They were part of a coordinated campaign to destroy the infrastructure that supported galactic civilization. Every attack was carefully planned to cause maximum long-term damage with minimum human resources. Dr. Han Bo-Ra's biological weapons program had expanded beyond anyone's imagination. Working from hidden laboratories on refugee ships scattered throughout the galaxy, she and her team had developed targeted diseases for dozens of alien species. For the silicon-based crystalline collective, she created a virus that interfered with their quantum resonance patterns, causing them to lose cohesion and crumble into dust. For the energy beings of the stellar commonwealth, she developed a disruptor field that scattered their consciousness across space. But her most terrifying creation was designed for the Zephyrians. The enhanced molting syndrome didn't just kill, it did so slowly and publicly. Infected Zephyrians would molt continuously until they died of exhaustion, but the process took weeks. During that time, they served as walking advertisements for human vengeance. We could make it quicker. Her assistant, Dr. Park Hyjin, suggested. More merciful. Han looked at the images on her screen, before and after photos of Earth's great cities. They showed no mercy to our children. Why should we show mercy to theirs? The biological weapons were deployed through human operatives, contaminated supplies, even infected prisoners who were deliberately allowed to escape. Within months, every major alien population center was dealing with outbreaks of human-engineered diseases. The aliens tried to develop countermeasures, but human biological warfare was unlike anything they had faced before. Traditional diseases evolved naturally and could be studied and defeated. Human weapons were designed with malicious intelligence, engineered to be as difficult to cure as possible. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were held almost daily. The once proud alliance was fragmenting under the pressure of constant attack. Species blamed each other for the war. Military commanders demanded more resources. Civilian leaders called for peace negotiations. Councillor Vexithari, his scales now permanently dark with stress and fear, addressed the assembly with growing desperation. We are losing this war not because the humans are stronger, but because they fight without honor, without mercy, without any regard for the rules of civilized warfare. Elder Mordan's crystal body no longer chimed with gentle music. Instead, it produced harsh, discordant sounds that reflected his inner turmoil. Perhaps the concept of civilized warfare is a luxury we can no longer afford. Perhaps we must adapt our methods to match theirs. You're talking about genocide, accused Representative Felmar of the Gentle Ones. Complete extermination of the human species. And what exactly do you think they're doing to us? Vexthari's scales flashed angry red. They've made it clear that this war will not end until every one of us is dead or enslaved. The debate raged for hours, but no consensus emerged. Some species wanted to escalate the conflict, to use their superior numbers and technology to wipe out every world that might harbor human forces. Others argued for immediate surrender, hoping that capitulation might earn them mercy. But as the reports continued to come in, another supply convoy destroyed, another industrial world sterilized, another biological weapon outbreak, it became clear that the time for easy solutions had passed. General Kethvar presented the latest casualty reports to the Council. His multiple eyes, once bright with confidence, were now dim with exhaustion. In the past month, we have lost 47 major installations. 5 years after the war began, the galaxy was a graveyard of dreams and broken civilizations. Trade had collapsed completely. Entire star systems had been abandoned. Billions of sentient beings lived in constant terror, waiting for the next human attack that could come from anywhere at any time. Elder Mordan stood alone in what remained of the Galactic Council chambers. The great station that had once been the symbol of galactic unity was now a burned shell, damaged beyond repair by human assault forces. Most of the council members were dead. The rest had fled to hidden bunkers on their homeworlds. The ancient crystalline being had lived for thousands of years. He had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations, but he had never seen anything like this. A single species attacked and nearly destroyed, had managed to bring down an entire galactic alliance through sheer determination and carefully planned revenge. His communication system chimed with an incoming message. The sender was Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, the human who had warned them 5 years ago. The same man who had stood in these chambers and tried to prevent this war. Elder Mordan. Kim's voice was older now, scarred by years of conflict. I believe it is time we talked. The meeting took place on a dead world that had once been a thriving hegemony colony. The planet's surface was radioactive wasteland, poisoned by human biological weapons 3 years earlier. It was fitting neutral ground, a monument to what this war had cost everyone. Kim arrived in a single ship, accompanied only by Admiral Park So-jin, his former security detail who now commanded the human siege fleet. Both looked older, harder than they had 5 years ago. The easy confidence of their species had been replaced by the cold competence of professional killers. Mordan materialized from his transport, his crystal body no longer singing with harmonic tones. Instead, he produced only harsh, discordant sounds that reflected the galaxy's pain. You wish to discuss terms, Kim said without preamble. There was no warmth in his voice, no diplomatic courtesy. This wasn't a negotiation between equals. It was a conversation between a predator and its prey. We wish to end this war, Mordan replied. Surely even you must see that it has gone too far. Billions have died. Entire civilizations have been destroyed. At what point does revenge become simple slaughter? Kim's expression didn't change. The slaughter began when you bombed our cities. Everything since then has been a response to your choice. A holographic projector activated, showing President Lee Ga-young speaking from Earth. The human leader looked exhausted but determined. Behind her, the planet's surface was still scarred from the orbital bombardment, but massive construction projects were visible everywhere. Earth was rebuilding, but as a fortress world rather than a garden. Honored Elder, President Lee began, humanity is prepared to discuss an end to this conflict, but understand that we are not negotiating from weakness. We are offering you a chance to survive. To emphasize the point, Admiral Park activated her own holographic display. It showed the current positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked confirmed bases, yellow dots marked suspected positions, blue dots marked active operations. The display was terrifying in its scope. Human forces had spread to every corner of the galaxy. They had bases in dead systems that should have been uninhabitable. They had operatives on worlds the hegemony thought were secure. They had weapons positioned within striking distance of every major alien population center. As you can see, Park said calmly, we are not desperate refugees begging for mercy. We are the dominant military force in this galaxy. The question is whether we use that dominance to finish what you started, or whether we find another solution. The last Zephyrian, successor to the long-dead counselor Vexithari, materialized via hologram. His scales were pale gray, the color of defeat and despair. What are your terms? Kim pulled out a datapad and began reading. Complete dissolution of the Galactic Council. Full reparations for the destruction of Earth, to be paid by all participating species over the next century. Establishment of a new galactic confederation based on species equality, rather than council dominance. And absolute guarantee of human independence and security. And if we refuse? Asked the last Zephyrian, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Park answered by expanding her tactical display. The hologram now showed detailed strike plans for every major alien homeworld, nuclear weapons positioned in asteroid belts, biological weapons ready for deployment, sleeper operatives in position to sabotage critical infrastructure. Then we implement final protocol, Kim said quietly. Every alien homeworld dies. Every major population center is destroyed. Every piece of infrastructure that supports galactic civilization is systematically eliminated. We turn this galaxy into a tomb and rule over the ashes. The silence that followed was broken only by the harsh sounds of Mordan's distressed crystal matrix. The ancient being had run probability calculations for months. Every scenario showed the same result. If the war continued, both humans and aliens would destroy each other completely. You're talking about mutual annihilation, Mordan finally said. No, Kim corrected. We're talking about your annihilation. Humans are very good at surviving in harsh conditions. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We can live on dead worlds, in space stations, and the ruins of civilization. Can you? The truth was stark and undeniable. Human forces had proven they could operate from hidden bases on airless worlds, in the frozen outer reaches of star systems, even in the empty space between galaxies. They had adapted their entire civilization for survival in the harshest possible conditions. The alien species, by contrast, were dependent on the complex infrastructure of galactic civilization. They needed stable governments, regular trade, predictable supply lines. They were civilization builders, not survivors. There is another consideration, President Lee continued. Our intelligence indicates that several alien species are already planning to abandon the Hegemony Alliance. The Gentle Ones have withdrawn from military operations. The Harmonians are refusing to provide materials for weapons production. Your alliance is fracturing under the pressure of this war. This was true, though the alien leaders had tried to keep it secret. Species after species was discovering that they could not match human determination. When faced with an enemy that would literally rather die than surrender, many aliens were choosing to retreat rather than fight to extinction. The negotiations continued for hours. Every human demand was backed by the implicit threat of total destruction. Every alien attempt to bargain was met with displays of human military capability. The breakthrough came when Mordan presented his own calculations. The crystalline being had spent years analyzing the war's trajectory, using mathematical models that incorporated millions of variables. If this conflict ends now, he said, both our civilizations can survive, damaged, changed, but alive. If it continues for another year, galactic civilization collapses entirely. If it continues for 2 years, both humans and aliens will be extinct, leaving the galaxy empty. He paused, his crystal body producing sounds of profound sadness. You warned us, Ambassador Kim. In the council chambers 5 years ago, you told us exactly what would happen if we attacked your world. We chose not to believe you. Kim nodded slowly. We hoped you would be reasonable. We hoped you would choose to leave us alone. We hoped we wouldn't have to prove what we were capable of. You were correct about everything, Mordan admitted. We did not understand what humans were. We thought you were a young species that could be easily dominated. We failed to recognize that you are not young, you are new. And there is a difference. The treaty was signed on the anniversary of Earth's bombardment. The document was short and precise, written in the simple language that humans preferred over diplomatic flowery phrases. The Galactic Council was dissolved, its authority transferred to a new confederation of equal species. Every species would have an equal vote, regardless of their military power or economic influence. No species could declare war on another without unanimous consent from all others. Reparations would be paid by all hegemony species over the next century, not just money, but technology, resources, and formal acknowledgement of responsibility for the war's beginning. Earth would be rebuilt, but as humanity chose, not as others dictated. Most importantly, the treaty included what became known as the Survival Clause. Any species that felt threatened by another could invoke Article 7, which would immediately activate a mutual defense agreement involving all Confederation members. No species would ever again face extinction alone. The ceremony took place in the ruins of the old council chambers. Human and alien representatives stood among the wreckage, signing documents that would reshape galactic civilization. As Kim signed his name to the treaty, he looked around at the damaged station, at the alien leaders who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant insects. Some looked defeated, some looked relieved. A few looked like they had learned important lessons about underestimating other species. Do you think they'll remember? Admiral Park asked quietly as they prepared to leave. Kim watched an alien child playing in the rubble, carefully avoiding the memorials to the billions who had died in the war.